The shocking plans Pope Leo XIV has for the Church's future. On May 8, 2025, the Catholic world was forever changed. The world had expected a familiar face to lead the Vatican, but what they got was something entirely different. The election of Pope Leo XIV was not just a historic moment. It was a radical statement. An American pope? In a church that has been led by Europeans for over 2 millennia? This was unthinkable, yet it happened. And with this one shocking choice, a new era was born, and the Church would never be the same again. Why would the Vatican, the heart of Catholic tradition, suddenly choose a man from America? Could this be the beginning of a profound shift in the Church's path, one that challenges everything the Vatican has stood for? What is the hidden agenda behind this drastic move? For centuries, the Church has remained tethered to its European roots. But could Pope Leo XIV's leadership be pulling the Church into a new age? One defined not by tradition, but by transformation? In this video, we will dive deep into the shocking plans Pope Leo XIV has for the future of the Catholic Church. From his radical reforms on celibacy to the new role women will play within the Vatican, we will uncover the changes that are shaking the very foundations of one of the oldest institutions in the world. You'll discover why these reforms aren't just theological, they're global, personal, and irreversible. Stay tuned, because what you're about to witness could change the way you view faith, tradition, and the Church itself forever. And as you explore the future of Pope Leo XIV's papacy, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think these reforms will save the Church, or will they tear it apart? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights into the revolutionary shifts happening right now in the Vatican. The humble roots of Pope Leo XIV, a man of the people. In the quiet streets of Chicago, far from the marble halls of Rome, Robert Francis Prevost lived a life that seemed destined for obscurity. Born in 1955 to a working-class family, he didn't grow up amidst the wealth or power that typically accompanies those who ascend to high offices. His life was shaped by hard work, faith, and a deep understanding of the struggles of everyday people. Before he became Pope Leo XIV, he was a missionary in Peru, where he learned not only about the poverty of the world, but also about the profound power of compassion. It was here, on the dusty roads of Chulucanas, among the sick, the poor, and the forgotten, that Faust's heart was molded for leadership. Not a leadership of power or grandeur, but a leadership rooted in humility, listening, and serving. This time in Peru was not just a chapter of his life, it was a revelation. While others preached from pulpits, he lived among the people. He ate their food, shared their hardships, and listened to their stories. It was here he truly understood the meaning of faith, not as an abstract theology discussed in grand cathedrals, but as the living, breathing essence of hope that sustains those who have nothing but faith itself. In these moments, he was not just a missionary. He was a witness to the raw, unfiltered human experience, where pain and joy coexisted in ways that transformed the soul. Pope Leo XIV did not rise through the ranks of the Vatican elite. He did not climb the traditional ladders of power that have long defined the clergy. Instead, he learned from the people, the marginalized, the oppressed, those who had no voice. This background made him a man of action, not words, a man who understood that leadership was not about titles or influence, but about service, sacrifice, and empathy. His papacy, therefore, is not just a political shift. It is the embodiment of his life's mission, faith in action, not just words. The Church under his leadership will no longer merely preach from its ivory tower. It will listen to the cries of its people, take action, and transform lives. In the quiet corners of the Vatican, where tradition and power often meet, Faust's background as a man who served without seeking recognition makes him stand apart from the typical figurehead of the Church. It's a humbling reminder that the truest leaders are often the ones who have walked the hardest paths, not for the glory of being seen, but for the purpose of seeing others. And in his leadership, we see a profound lesson. True leadership comes from those who know what it means to listen, to serve, and to act with compassion. As we dive deeper into the world of Pope Leo XIV's vision, we begin to understand that this is not simply a man of power. He is a man on a mission to heal the wounds of a church that has lost its way. And it's not just a mission for change, it's a mission for restoration. But can this vision truly heal centuries of division and stagnation? As we will explore in the next section, this question is not just about theology. It's about the very soul of the Church itself. A cultural clash. Within the Vatican, the new American Pope. When Pope Leo XIV was chosen to lead the Catholic Church, the world watched in shock. The first American Pope in history? It wasn't just unexpected. It was a challenge to everything the Vatican had been for centuries. The Pope, a figure deeply tied to the European heart of the Church, was now an outsider, someone whose very existence in the papacy was a symbol of something greater: change. And that change wasn't just about geography. It was about culture, values, and vision. As an American, Pope Leo XIV brought a mindset that was vastly different from the slow-moving, often diplomatic culture of the Vatican. In America, business is quick, decisions are made with urgency, and leaders are expected to take risks. This was not just a cultural difference, it was a tectonic shift in how the Church would now approach its future. Where the Vatican had been methodical, patient, and often tied to centuries-old traditions, Leo XIV's American background infused his leadership with a pragmatism and boldness that would reshape the Church's direction. The Vatican had long been a place where decisions were made behind closed doors, where diplomacy reigned, and where tradition was preserved at all costs. But under Pope Leo XIV, that tradition was now being tested. The quiet corridors of the Vatican, where once the slow rhythm of history dictated action, now faced a man who was used to moving swiftly, decisively, and without hesitation. His decisions, often made with a firm hand, shook the very foundation of the Church. His rise to power wasn't just a change in leadership, it was the end of an era. The traditional ways of the Church, tied to its European roots, began to clash with the fast-paced, results-oriented American approach. The Vatican Curia, long dominated by Italian influence, now found itself confronting an outsider, a pope who wasn't bound by tradition, but rather by a vision for the future. This new direction wasn't just uncomfortable for some, it was outright threatening. And the question arose, would this American pope lead the Church into a new era of openness? Or would his reforms divide it irreparably? For many cardinals, especially those steeped in the old ways, the changes were not just alarming, they were a challenge to their very power. The cultural divide between Leo XIV's pragmatism and the Vatican's traditionalism created an environment of tension. There were whispered meetings, hushed discussions, and questions about whether the Church could survive such a transformation. But the new pope stood firm, not willing to back down or dilute his vision. He was clear. The Church needed to evolve, not just preserve its past. This cultural clash is not simply a clash of personalities. It is a battle between old values and new visions, a struggle for the soul of the Church. Can an institution that has survived for centuries truly change? Will it find a way to embrace the future without losing its essence? These are the questions that Pope Leo XIV's papacy seeks to answer. But as we continue to explore, it becomes clear that his vision is not just about cultural shift, it is about the very heart of the Church itself. The disruptive reforms, reshaping the Vatican. Pope Leo XIV's papacy was never going to be about maintaining the status quo. From the moment he took office, it was clear that his approach to leadership would be transformative, revolutionary, even. The Vatican, long a fortress of tradition, now faced the prospect of serious change. Changes that would affect everything from the way the Church communicated with the outside world to the very structure of its internal power. Perhaps the most striking of these reforms was his commitment to transparency. For centuries, the Vatican operated with a level of secrecy that often bred mistrust. But Pope Leo XIV, with his American background, understood that transparency wasn't just a value, it was a necessity. He began by reforming the way the Church communicated, pushing for more openness and directness in both its internal operations and its relationships with the public. This shift in communication was not just about sending clearer messages, it was about rebuilding trust. The Church had long been an institution that held information close to its chest, using secrecy as a shield. But in an era where information flows freely and rapidly, Pope Leo XIV realized that silence no longer protected the Church. It isolated it. Through his reforms, he began the difficult work of opening up the Church to the world, addressing issues that had been swept under the rug for too long. In addition to transparency, Pope Leo XIV took a hard look at the Vatican's internal structure. The bureaucracy of the Vatican, often slow and inefficient, was ripe for reform. He sought to streamline the Vatican's operations, removing outdated practices and creating a system that was more responsive and more agile. His vision was clear. The Church had to move faster, think broader, and serve its people better. This was no easy task. The Vatican is not just a religious institution, it is a political powerhouse, and its bureaucratic systems have been in place for centuries. To change these systems was to challenge the very core of the Church's power structure. Yet Pope Leo XIV, with his strategic mind and relentless drive, pushed forward. He began to restructure the Vatican's departments, remove inefficiencies, and create a more unified, focused leadership team. These reforms were not about cosmetic change, they were about building a foundation for the future. For Pope Leo XIV, the Church could not afford to remain stagnant. It needed to evolve. And as he began to reshape the Vatican, it became clear that his reforms were not just political, they were spiritual. The Church, under his leadership, was becoming more connected to its people, more attuned to the needs of its communities, and more ready to engage with the world in meaningful ways. The challenge was immense, but Pope Leo XIV's vision was unshakable. He knew that true reform requires courage, especially in the face of resistance. But as we look at the changes he's begun to make, it's clear that the Church is on the brink of a profound transformation. The road ahead will not be easy, but Pope Leo XIV's willingness to confront difficult truths and make bold decisions gives hope that the Church, while rooted in tradition, can find new ways to serve its faithful in a rapidly changing world. As we move forward, the question remains: can Pope Leo XIV's reforms truly heal the wounds of the Church, or will they lead to a rupture too deep to repair? Only time will tell. Celibacy and the role of women. The quiet revolution. The Catholic Church, for centuries, has upheld the discipline of celibacy for its priests as a sacred tradition. It was never questioned, never altered, an unshakable part of Church doctrine. However, Pope Leo XIV's leadership represents not just a shift in strategy, but a quiet revolution within the very fabric of Catholicism. For the first time in history, a pope stands not simply to preserve tradition, but to challenge it when it no longer serves its purpose. The priesthood, according to Pope Leo XIV, must evolve to meet the needs of the people it serves. He doesn't attack tradition directly, but instead raises fundamental questions. Why, in the modern world, where communities are spread thin and the need for pastoral care is immense, should a shortage of priests leave entire regions without the Eucharist for months? Why should good, faith-driven men be turned away from ministry simply because they are married? These aren't questions of doctrine. They are questions of compassion, of meeting the needs of the faithful who are often neglected in the process. Take, for instance, the crisis in rural Africa or the Amazon region, where the number of priests is far fewer than needed. In many cases, women are already stepping in to lead their communities, organizing prayer services, offering counsel, and keeping the faith alive in ways that echo the early church. Pope Leo XIV's leadership is not merely acknowledging this reality. It is opening the door to discussions that could reshape the entire future of the priesthood. This isn't about tearing down traditions, it's about healing and revitalizing the church. For centuries, the church has operated within a tightly controlled structure that, while meaningful in its time, now often fails to meet the needs of those in the most vulnerable corners of the world. Pope Leo XIV isn't looking to cast away what has worked. He is looking to lift the burdens of the people and allow the church to serve, not just for the sake of tradition, but for the sake of its true mission. The quiet seeds of change he is planting have already begun to take root in many regions. Bishops who once stood firm in their opposition to reform now find themselves in a position where they must reconcile tradition with the evolving needs of their flock. Pope Leo XIV, with his characteristic calmness, does not rush these changes, but instead carefully nurtures them. His commitment to celibacy and the question of women's roles isn't about dismissing the past. It's about acknowledging that the Church, like all institutions, must grow, change, and adapt to fulfill its true calling. This movement for reform, subtle and deeply rooted in compassion, may be one of the most profound steps the Catholic Church has ever taken. For it is not the Church that needs changing, but how the Church responds to the cries of its people. And in this quiet revolution, we see the promise of a Church that is more inclusive, more compassionate, and most importantly, more true to the mission of Jesus Christ himself. As we continue our journey through Pope Leo XIV's papacy, we move into a deeper realm of transformation, one that challenges not just the Church's outward practices, but its very foundation, the core doctrines it has held sacred for centuries. Theological transformation, questioning the unquestionable. For centuries, the Catholic Church has adhered to doctrines that have never been questioned. Concepts like the nature of sin, the permanence of hell, and the salvation of non-Catholics were etched into the faith as truths that could not be changed. These doctrines were seen as unassailable, guiding the faith of billions. But under Pope Leo XIV, these long-standing teachings are now coming under a careful and respectful review. This is not a rebellion against the faith. It is a courageous step toward a deeper understanding of faith in the modern world. Pope Leo XIV has established confidential theological commissions, composed of some of the brightest minds in the Church, canon lawyers, theologians, and historians, to explore the deeper meanings of these doctrines. Their mission is not to discard centuries of teaching, but to reframe them in light of new understandings of the world. The Church is not rejecting tradition. It is allowing itself to grow and learn from its past mistakes. One of the most profound areas under review is the nature of sin. For centuries, sin was viewed through a rigid lens, a set of rules that must be followed, a strict dichotomy between right and wrong. But Pope Leo XIV's approach questions whether this framework still serves the faithful today. Is sin truly about breaking rules, Or is it a deeper disconnection from the divine, a failure to live in alignment with love and compassion? By asking these questions, Pope Leo XIV is leading the Church into a space where faith isn't just about obeying laws, it's about seeking a deeper, more personal relationship with God. This theological transformation doesn't just end with sin. The concept of hell, once a fiery and eternal punishment for the damned, is now being re-examined in a world that has a far more nuanced understanding of justice, mercy, and love. What does hell truly mean in the context of a loving, merciful God? Is it a literal place of torment, or is it a spiritual state of separation from God? These are questions that Pope Leo XIV has brought to the forefront, recognizing that the Church must speak in ways that align with the hearts and minds of people today. The question of salvation for non-Catholics is another area where Pope Leo XIV is showing the courage to think differently. For centuries, the Church has taught that salvation is reserved for those within its walls. But Pope Leo XIV, understanding the interconnectedness of humanity, now asks, can a loving God truly limit salvation to those who belong to a particular denomination? Is salvation a matter of belonging to a specific faith tradition, or is it found in living a life of love and service, regardless of one's religious label? In these quiet theological inquiries, Pope Leo XIV is setting the stage for a radical shift in how the Church views itself and its role in the world. He is not erasing centuries of doctrine. Rather, he is creating room for growth, for understanding, and for reconciliation with a world that is constantly evolving. His work is a reminder that faith, like life, is dynamic. It must evolve to meet the needs of the people it serves. As we continue to look deeper into the future Pope Leo XIV envisions, we can see that this transformation will not only affect the Church's theology, but also its very identity. The question becomes, what is the role of the Church in the modern world? And how can the Church speak to a generation that is increasingly questioning long-held beliefs? A digital church, faith in the modern world. In an age dominated by technology, it was inevitable that the Church would eventually confront the challenge of engaging with a digital world. Under Pope Leo XIV, the Vatican is not only embracing technology, it is making it a core part of the Church's future. Pope Leo XIV's vision is clear. The Church must not only speak to the modern world, but must live in it. And to do that, the Church must embrace the tools and methods that the modern world uses. The Pope's boldest initiative thus far is the creation of a global digital platform, an interactive space where Catholics from every corner of the world can engage with the Church. This platform goes beyond simply streaming masses or offering virtual confessions. It offers direct access to clergy, facilitates spiritual formation, and creates a space where Catholics can ask questions, engage in dialogue, and share their faith in real time. The concept of digital confession was met with shock by some, but for Pope Leo XIV, it was a necessary step in making the Church accessible to those who cannot physically reach a church. For people living in war zones, remote villages, or countries where Catholicism is outlawed, this platform represents a lifeline, a way to connect with God and with their faith when all other doors are closed. Pope Leo XIV's digital church is not replacing the physical church, it is expanding the reach of the Church into spaces it could never reach before. It is creating a bridge between the sacred and the everyday, between the ancient rituals of the Church and the modern world of technology. This digital shift is more than just a technological upgrade. It is a shift in how the Church views its role in the world. It is a church that meets people where they are, in the places where they need it most. However, this transformation is not without its challenges. Many bishops, deeply rooted in tradition, are hesitant to embrace this digital shift. The idea of confession through a device of virtual masses seems impersonal, even sacrilegious to some. But Pope Leo XIV's approach is not about replacing the sacred with the secular. It is about expanding the Church's mission to meet the needs of the modern world without losing its essence. As we explore this new digital frontier, it becomes clear that Pope Leo XIV's vision is not just about technology. It is about accessibility, about breaking down the barriers that have kept people from experiencing the fullness of the Church. In this digital age, faith doesn't have to be confined to the walls of a building. It can live in the hearts of people, no matter where they are. The question now is, will the Church embrace this new model, or will it resist, holding on to the past in a world that is constantly changing? Pope Leo XIV's digital Church is just the beginning, and its impact will be felt not just in the Vatican, but across the globe. Resistance within the Church, the clash of visions. Change, no matter how necessary, always invites resistance. It's a universal truth, and it is no different within the hallowed walls of the Vatican. Pope Leo XIV, with his bold and transformative vision, has undoubtedly sparked a firestorm of dissent, one that is slowly but surely rising from the deepest corners of the Church. This resistance is not a sign of weakness, but a reflection of the deep commitment to tradition that has guided the Church for centuries. However, tradition, while noble, can sometimes be a cage that prevents growth. The clash of visions between the future Pope Leo XIV envisions and the one his detractors wish to preserve represents not just a conflict of ideas, but a spiritual battle for the heart of the Catholic Church. The resistance isn't just a few voices in the dark, it's a powerful undercurrent that has gained momentum within the ranks of the Vatican. Some of the most entrenched and conservative cardinals, especially those from Europe and Africa, feel threatened by the changes that Pope Leo XIV is ushering in. Their world is one where the slow pace of tradition provides comfort, where certainty is found in preserving the structures of the past. But Pope Leo XIV's papacy represents a world where the structures of the Church are flexible, open to transformation, and centered on the needs of the people. His reforms challenge not just policy, but the very framework of power within the Church. At the heart of this resistance lies a fundamental fear of losing control, fear of losing influence, and perhaps fear of the unknown. The Church in its current form has maintained a delicate balance for centuries. But balance, while stable, can often be stagnant. Pope Leo XIV, in his wisdom, sees the stagnation for what it is. He understands that to remain relevant in the world today, the Church must evolve, and that evolution requires breaking free from the inertia that has held it back for so long. This tension between tradition and transformation is not a new story. Throughout history, the Church has faced moments of profound change, moments when its teachings were questioned, when its structures were challenged, when its very purpose was redefined. The Reformation, the Second Vatican Council, these were all times of great upheaval, where the future of the Church was debated, fought for, and ultimately shaped by those willing to risk change for the sake of faith. Pope Leo XIV's reforms are not just the next in line, they are a natural extension of this ongoing process of renewal. And just like in times past, those who resist change do so out of a deep love for the Church and its traditions, but also out of fear that change will dilute its purity. But here lies the lesson. Transformation, while difficult, is often the key to survival. The Church, under Pope Leo XIV, is facing an opportunity to not only survive, but to thrive. The resistance it faces is not a sign of failure, but a reminder of the stakes involved. The question now is not whether Pope Leo XIV will face resistance. The question is whether the Church will open its heart to the future or remain rooted in its past, afraid of the changes that are already underway. As we look toward the next phase of Pope Leo XIV's papacy, the challenge becomes clear. Will he win the hearts of those who resist, or will the clash of visions lead to division and fracture? A global church, the future of the Catholic faith. As Pope Leo XIV's papacy unfolds, it becomes increasingly clear that his vision extends far beyond the walls of the Vatican. In his view, the Catholic Church is not a European institution. It is a global one, with a mission to serve not just the faithful in the West, but the billions of Catholics spread across the world. This shift in perspective, away from Rome as the center of all church affairs, is one of the most profound changes Pope Leo XIV is introducing. For centuries, Rome has been the heart of the Catholic Church, the seat of authority and decision-making. But Pope Leo XIV's reforms signal a shift in the very power structure of the Church. His appointment of bishops from across the globe, his emphasis on local leadership, and his efforts to decentralize authority reflect a deep understanding of the Church's need to be more in tune with the lives of its people. In Africa, Asia, Latin America, regions where the Church has millions of members, there is a growing sense that the Vatican has become too distant, too out of touch with their realities. Pope Leo XIV's approach acknowledges this, and he is determined to give local churches more power to serve their communities. This vision is not about dismantling the core of the Church. It's about spreading its influence in a way that's more responsive to the needs of the faithful. In many parts of the world, the Catholic Church isn't just a spiritual institution. It's a vital part of people's lives. Whether it's offering education, providing health care, or leading in times of crisis, the Church plays a central role. Yet for many years, the decisions that affect these communities have been made thousands of miles away by people who don't share their struggles. Pope Leo XIV seeks to change that by giving local bishops and leaders more authority to make decisions that directly impact their communities. This move toward decentralization is not just about politics. It's about a deeper spiritual truth. The Church is not a distant institution that governs from above. It is a living, breathing body made up of individuals who serve each other in love. Pope Leo XIV's vision for a global church is one that mirrors the early church, where the faithful were connected by a common mission, not by a centralized hierarchy. This new church under his leadership will be a church that listens, a church that empowers local leaders, a church that adapts to the unique needs of each community. The question that remains is whether the Vatican will embrace this vision of a decentralized church or resist it in favor of maintaining control. There are many who fear that decentralization will lead to fragmentation, that the unity of the church will be lost. But Pope Leo XIV's belief in the power of local communities, in the strength of the people, suggests that this shift is not a threat to unity. It is the key to it. For when the Church is rooted in the lives of the people it serves, it becomes a force for good in ways that a centralized institution could never achieve. The future of the Catholic Church lies not in its ability to hold on to its past, but in its willingness to embrace its future. Pope Leo XIV's vision for a global church is one that honors tradition while opening the doors to new possibilities. It's a vision that calls for courage, for openness, and for a deep trust in the faithful. As we look ahead, the question is clear. Will the Church embrace the future, or will it remain bound to a past that no longer serves its mission? The answer perhaps lies in the very heart of Pope Leo XIV's reforms, changes that are not just about politics, but about the soul of the Church itself. As we reach the conclusion of this profound journey through the transformation of the Catholic Church under Pope Leo XIV, it's impossible to ignore the magnitude of the shift that is taking place. The changes that are unfolding within the Vatican are not simply the result of one man's vision. They are a testament to the collective cry for a church that is more connected to the hearts of its people. These reforms are about more than theology or policy. They are about healing. They are about bringing the church back to its core purpose, to serve, to love, and to walk alongside every soul, regardless of where they are in the world. Pope Leo XIV's leadership embodies a profound belief in the power of empathy and compassion. It is a belief that the Church's role is not to maintain power, but to spread hope, to be a beacon of light in a world that often feels dark. This is not the same Church that we have known for centuries. This is a Church that is awakening to its calling in a modern world, a world where the faithful need more than rituals. They need a Church that listens, that is present, and that is willing to grow alongside them. As we look ahead to the future of the Church, it's clear that the transformation Pope Leo XIV is guiding us through is not without its challenges. The road ahead may be difficult, and the resistance from those who cling to tradition may be strong. But as we have seen throughout history, transformation is never easy. It requires courage, conviction, and the willingness to step into the unknown with faith as our guide. Pope Leo XIV's courage to face these challenges, to ask the difficult questions, and to lead with integrity and compassion offers a hope that the Church is entering a new era, one where the light of faith will shine brighter than ever before. This journey is one of healing, not just for the Church, but for all of us. Each step we take toward this transformation is an opportunity to reflect on our own journey of faith, to heal old wounds, and to open our hearts to the possibilities of a more inclusive, compassionate world. Pope Leo XIV is not just a leader, he is a healer, a visionary who believes that through love, understanding, and change, the Church can become a force for good in the world once again. If this video has touched your soul, if it has helped you find a glimmer of light in the darkness, then I invite you to support the continuation of this message. Your energy, your presence here, means the world to me. Every like, every share, every comment is more than just a simple gesture. It is a gift that helps to spread this message of hope and transformation. If you feel inspired by what you have heard today, if you believe in the future that Pope Leo XIV is trying to build, then I humbly ask for your support, however small, to help me continue creating these videos, to keep sharing the light of God's Word and the message of love and renewal. In a world that often feels divided, it's the small acts of kindness, the quiet support, and the willingness to engage in meaningful conversations that will ultimately make the greatest difference. Together, we can build a community that uplifts and heals, a community that doesn't shy away from the tough questions, but faces them with compassion and faith. Thank you from the depths of my heart for being a part of this journey. Your support, your willingness to share your thoughts and reflections, and your commitment to the message of love and transformation are what keep this movement alive. May we continue to walk this path together with hearts full of faith and with a spirit of compassion and hope that transcends all boundaries. If you believe in the power of change, in the power of love, and in the future of the Church, then this message is for you. Let's continue to spread this energy together, to heal, to transform, and to awaken the world to the love and light that we are all called to share.